Good evening and welcome. You're watching the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. Who has emerged victorious at the end of the no confidence motion in Parliament? Has the opposition been able to score any political brownie points, or has the Modi government delivered the knockout blow to the opposition? That big question is my top focus on the Newstrack.
Modi's epic 2-hour speech explodes.
ईश्वर ने विपक्ष को सुझाया और वो प्रस्ताव लेकर आए। एक तरह से विपक्ष का अविश्वास प्रस्ताव हमारे लिए शुभ होता है।
Prime Minister's biggest bashing of opposition.
देश से ज्यादा उनके लिए दल है, देश से बड़ा दल है, देश से पहले प्राथमिकता दल है। आपको गरीब के भूख की चिंता नहीं है, सत्ता की भूख, यही आपके दिमाग में सवार है।
Fury for India.
इनकी मुसीबत ऐसी है कि खुद को जिंदा रखने के लिए इनको एनडीए का ही सहारा लेना पड़ा है। आदत के मुताबिक घमंड का जो आई है ना, आई वो उनको छोड़ता नहीं है और इसलिए एनडीए में 2 आई पिरो दिए, 2 घमंड के आई पिरो दिए।
Words for Manipur.
आप समय पहचानिए, साथ मिलकर के चलें, मणिपुर के लोगों को विश्वास देकर के चलें। राजनीति के खेल करने के लिए मणिपुर की भूमि का कम से कम दुरुपयोग न करें।
Opposition wanted Prime Minister's speech walks out.
जिनका ये देश
Reply, rebuttal and run up to 2024. Big focus on Newstrack.
Before we dive into the big political debate, here's a look at the headlines I'm tracking today. Prime Minister Modi speaks on the situation in Manipur in Parliament, assures peace in the state, hits out at the opposition for derailing the discussion on the crisis. In his response to the no-confidence motion, Prime Minister hits out at Team India, calls the alliance Ghamandia. Opposition MPs walk out during the PM's speech. After Rahul Gandhi's Ravan taunt, Prime Minister returns fire, says arrogance demolished the Congress, brought the party down from 400 to 40 seats. Centre lists bill to regulate appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioners in the Rajya Sabha, seeks to remove the Chief Justice from the selection panel. Air India reveals its rebranding. The golden window is the new logo, which is supposed to represent limitless possibilities and progress. The Manipur issue was tackled by the Prime Minister during his address in the no-confidence motion. This was the premise behind the opposition calling the no-confidence motion in Parliament. The Prime Minister assured the House and the country that peace will be restored in Manipur. Prime Minister Modi declared that India stands with the mothers and daughters of Manipur and blamed the Congress for politicizing violence in the state. Before we dive into our big political debate and try and get reactions from across the political spectrum on who won and why, let me get you some of the key excerpts from the Prime Minister's address in the no-confidence motion in Lok Sabha.
मणिपुर में अदालत का एक फैसला आया। अब अदालतों में क्या हो रहा है वो हम जानते हैं। अब उसके पक्ष विपक्ष में जो परिस्थितियां बनी, हिंसा का दौर शुरू हो गया और उसमें बहुत परिवारों को मुश्किल हुई। अनेक जितनों ने अपने स्वजन भी खोए, महिलाओं के साथ गंभीर अपराध हुआ और ये अपराध अक्षम्य है और दोषियों को कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दिलवाने के लिए केंद्र सरकार, राज्य सरकार मिलकर के भरपूर प्रयास कर रही है और मैं देश के सभी नागरिकों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि जिस प्रकार से प्रयास चल रहे हैं, निकट भविष्य में शांति का सूरज जरूर उगेगा। मणिपुर फिर एक बार नए आत्मविश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़ेगा। मैं मणिपुर के लोगों से भी आग्रहपूर्वक कहना चाहता हूं, वहां की माताओं, बहनों, बेटियों से कहना चाहता हूं, देश आपके साथ है, ये सदन आपके साथ है। हम सब मिलकर के, कोई यहां हो या ना हो, हम सब मिलकर के इस चुनौती का समाधान निकालेंगे। वहां फिर से शांति की स्थापना होगी। मैं मणिपुर के लोगों को विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मणिपुर फिर विकास की राह पर तेज गति से आगे बढ़े, उसमें कोई प्रयासों में कोर कसर नहीं रहेगी। हमने कहा था अकेले मणिपुर के लिए आओ, चर्चा करो। गृह मंत्री जी ने चिट्ठी लिख करके कहा था, उनके विभाग से जुड़ा विषय था, लेकिन साहस नहीं था, इरादा नहीं था और पेट में पाप था, दर्द पेट में हो रहा था और फोड़ रहे थे सर। इसका ये परिणाम था। आदरणीय अध्यक्ष जी, मणिपुर की स्थिति पर देश के गृह मंत्री श्रीमान अमित शाह ने कल 2 घंटे तक विस्तार से और बड़े धैर्य से, रत्ती भर भी राजनीति के बिना सारे विषय को विस्तार से समझाया, सरकार की और देश की चिंता को प्रकट किया और उसमें देश की जनता को जागरूक करने का भी प्रयास था। उसमें इस पूरे सदन की तरफ से एक विश्वास का संदेश मणिपुर को पहुंचाने का इरादा था। उसमें जन सामान्य को शिक्षित करने का भी प्रयास था। एक नेक ईमानदारी से देश की भलाई के लिए और मणिपुर की समस्या के लिए रास्ते खोजना एक प्रयास था, लेकिन सिवाय राजनीति कुछ करना नहीं है। इसलिए इन्होंने यही खेल किए, यही स्थिति किया।
So who has emerged politically stronger at the end of this no confidence motion? Was the opposition able to land some hard punches? Do they have any takeaways at the end, or was the government able to land the knockout blow? To talk about this, I've got different perspectives joining us on this Newstrack conversation. I want to introduce, representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, its Member of Parliament, National Spokesperson GVL Narasimha Rao, squaring off against GVL from the Congress, Supriya Shirnet, the party's national spokesperson. With me in the studio, Rashid Kidwai. With us also our National Affairs Editor Rahul Srivastav, and last but not least, Harsh Gupta Madhusudan, author of A New Idea of India. I want to go across to GVL Narasimha Rao to begin this debate on why you think that the government has emerged stronger, the Prime Minister being able to land the knockout blow. The opposition thinks the Prime Minister didn't speak soon enough on Manipur. The opposition walked out. They're trying to make it seem as if this was an ineffective address. Why do you think the opposition is wrong? Why do you think you won? GVL.
Rahul, good evening to you, all the panelists and the viewers. You see, right at the beginning, Honorable Prime Minister laid out a structure of his speech. You see, there was there were ample opportunities for this opposition to discuss Manipur. That even Honorable Home Minister described all the entire situation and how government handled it at great length. The government was willing to discuss Manipur from day one. But this no confidence motion that the opposition brought, I think in the end they walked out of the house. They chickened out. I think if they had the courage of conviction, they ought to have sat in the house until the vote took place, and they should have actually carried
Supriya
this motion.
Shirnath, respond to your initial attack. You're saying the opposition chickened out, which is why they ran away. They should have sat there and listened, which is also the point the Prime Minister made. When you spew venom, at least have the courage to listen to what the government has to say. Why did the opposition run away, Supriya Shirnath?
I congratulate India for forcing the Prime Minister to come and speak on the 100th day since Manipur has been in the throes of violence. The Prime Minister did his whataboutery for 1 hour 38 minutes. He stopped to drink water and the cameras shifted to the speaker because he did not want to be seen drinking water like this one time, if you remember. And that's when the opposition walked out. And when he saw the opposition walk out after his whataboutery, personal allegations, extremely pedestrian speech, he began to speak on Manipur. But guess what? He spoke on Manipur from 6:44 p.m. to 6:46. That is it. 2 minutes in his 2 hour, 14-minute speech. That's all that he spoke on Manipur. Then he went into whataboutery. You know, he was speaking about history and all of that. I today saw a man who's running helter-skelter, who's scared, who's so arrogant and drunk on power that he has lost connect with the ground realities. There are only 3 things that I have to say in the next 10 seconds. Thing number 1, why did you stay quiet for 100 days? Why did you have to wait for a no confidence motion to speak? Point number 2, why have you not visited Manipur? Point number 3, how does Biren Singh continue to be in office despite whatever one has heard on Manipur from your own MLA, from the Supreme Court? And point number 4, why is Assam Rifle and Manipur police at war with each other, filing FIRs against each other?
Okay.
Is this return of peace? Is this what you owe Manipur? 2 minutes out of 2 hours, 14 minutes. That's all I will say.
Rashid
And
Kidwai,
that
who won the
encapsulates
day?
speech.
Who's emerged stronger?
I think Prime Minister made a very powerful kind of election speech, but both opposition and the Congress, they made their point. I think they live to fight another day.
Do you think the opposition came across as well prepared, or
Yes,
did they come
Rahul,
across
because
as being ill-prepared?
no, it's far from it. I think the questions that Rahul Gandhi raised have not been answered. If I'm a citizen of Manipur state, I didn't get anything substantive.
Do you think it was wise to say Mother India is being butchered in Manipur?
Well, that's a political rhetoric. All of them do it. A lot of things that Prime Minister said. And once again, Prime Minister blurred a fine distinction that exists between the Indian state and Government of India. Any criticism of Government of India is touted as a criticism of Indian state. I think that is grossly unfair.
Rahul Srivastav, who won the day? Who's emerged stronger?
Rahul, I will say that if there is is there a political narrative to be built for 2024? I think that political narrative largely has won. Primarily because if you look at
Whose narrative has won?
there are 2 narratives today. And what will happen eventually, it will be a test-free because we are going into an election year now. We have got elections to Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and others, and then the 2024. You see, the opposition had an opportunity. I definitely believe now after 3 days of debate, the opposition had an opportunity. They wanted to force the Prime Minister to speak. And the core of it was Manipur. Now, at the end of the day, I do not have very strong questions on Manipur, or common man won't have questions, because barring a Gaurav Gogoi and Mahua Chatterjee, Mitro. So she and Manish Tiwari, we do not have very strong questions posed on this issue.
Harsh Madhusudan Gupta, the Congress says we forced the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur, and that is the opposition's big victory because for 100 days he wasn't willing to speak. Who, according to you, won the day and why?
Well, I think it was not even close. I think Prime Minister Modi won the day because by bringing up all the past issues of the Northeast, it painted the Congress in a very bad light. But I think more than that, I was surprised by the extent of focus on economics in his speech and how he painted the opposition as basically not going for development infrastructure, only going for freebies. For example, the Karnataka government recently, and how he is absolutely hell-bent on industrializing India from the point of view of defense, from the point of view of foreign policy, trade, industrial policy. I thought it was a very policy wonkish speech for a political speech at this level. And I think more than half of the time was spent on various schemes, laws, government, how the poor have benefited. So very much a political speech, but focused on economics. And I think there is really no answer the opposition has on the fact why did it take so long for 100 million toilets to be built? Why did it take so long for the last mile delivery on electricity, water?
You know, what the government was able to highlight, as Harsh says, Supriya, is the development that's taken place in the Northeast. The airports, the ports, the waterways, the roadways, which have now been built in the Northeast over the last 9 years, far exceeding any development effort in the Northeast over the past 70 years.
I'm going to buy you the biggest house possible in a city of your choice, and you will have to battle violence and hatred and women being ill-treated. What are you going to choose? That's a simple question I ask of you, not as an anchor, but as an Indian today. Will you be able to make that choice? What choice are we talking about? The Prime Minister spoke for 2 minutes out of 2 hours, 14 minutes on Manipur. The whole idea to make the Prime Minister speak was Manipur. I am sorry to say, this is brazen, blatant attitude of the Prime Minister, Rahul, that he chooses to look the other way when the question of Manipur arises. I also have one very important thing to say here, and this thing needs to be said. The Prime Minister can be drunk on power for all I care, and the people of this country will deal with it. Please don't speak in between. I gave you the courtesy, offer me the same courtesy. Otherwise, I will also have to cross a boundary. We can do a legitimate discussion, unlike the one that the Prime Minister just spoke. The Prime Minister has raised questions on somebody's surname. I want to ask Mr. Narendra Modi. The Modi surname comes from your own father, right? In the same way, the Gandhi surname comes from Indira Ji's husband and Rajiv Ji's father. What sort of a pedestrian remark was the Prime Minister making? Who in his right mind will call himself a law-abiding Indian, loving citizen and call India Ghamandiya? What sort of speech was that? Okay. But the reality is that the people of Manipur are asking that one question. Where is the Prime Minister for the last 100 days? This is not a contest of speeches. This is about ये मर्यादा है सदन की, ये कर्तव्य परायणता है प्रधानमंत्री की. 100 दिन से आप गायब थे.
GVL Narasimha Rao, Supriya Shrinet's argument is that while you may have built infrastructure and you can't go away from that, infrastructure without safety means nothing. You can have as many roads as you want, unless our women and children are safe, people are safe, that is inconsequential. And the fact is, even today, Manipur hasn't returned to normalcy. Far from.
Rahul, yesterday Home Minister Amit Shah ji gave a detailed account of it. Even today, Honorable Prime Minister said, certainly we have had a difficult situation. We will certainly bring this back on track and development in Manipur will continue as ever. But the problem is the Congress party is so frustrated. Their frustration stems from their inability to politically become relevant. They're frustrated. They have no concern about whatsoever about Manipur. If Manipur would have been the concern, there would have been a full-fledged 6 hours discussion on Manipur. You can't expect, you can't, given a no confidence motion, talk about everything under the sun. Talk about Ravan, talk about your Padayatra, talk about your all irrelevant stuff, and you expect. And the leader, when he refers, when he delivers his end speech, you don't expect him to ignore everything that has been spoken. Prime Minister gave a comprehensive account of everything. On Manipur, Honorable Home Minister gave a detailed account of it yesterday, and we were prepared for a 6 hours or even longer discussion. It is the Congress party's inability to politically become relevant even after this Ghamandiya coalition. Why shouldn't we call it Ghamandiya? Because it is your government that is responsible, despite not having the numbers in Lok Sabha.
Two arguments here.
Despite
one,
knowing that this
by
government
Supriya
enjoys the
Shrinet that the Prime Minister spoke for only 2 minutes on Manipur. The second, that the Home Minister had already spoken. What else can you possibly expect the Prime Minister to say?
There is a book called The Internal Security in India, Violence, Order and the State by Devesh Kapoor. I encourage everybody to read it. There are proper charts of violence in Maoist areas, northeast of India, jihadi violence in Kashmir and all other kinds of violence. All of them have been declining, including very precipitously since 2014, including in the northeast. So one state for 2 months, as terrible as it is, does not make a trend over 9 or 10 years. The trend is very much downwards, if at all it has accelerated. Secondly, it is a false choice of infrastructure versus safety. Again, Manipur is extremely unfortunate, the Prime Minister said the entire country is with them. But what about Itanagar? What about Guwahati? What about the airports that are opening there in Sikkim, for example? The people of Itanagar used to take hours to go just to Assam, just to cross the border. Now there are direct flights from Calcutta. So to say that the Northeast has not been deliberately integrated by this government is false. And it is equally true to say that earlier, especially the Nehru and Congress governments, would not make roads, saying that you are near the border and the Chinese might come along those roads, and out of that fear,
Rashid
they would not build
Kidwai,
infrastructure.
the data shows a secular downward trend in violent civilians being killed, security personnel being killed across the northeastern states during the NDA regime. The Prime Minister citing the integration and the development of the Northeast, in fact, as one of his biggest achievements. One Manipur, Harsh says, doesn't take away from all that's been achieved in the Northeast.
Rahul, we are discussing Manipur, and this whataboutery, this thing about, roads being built and, kind of peace and tranquility holds no value in this present context. There was no answer, at least as a citizen, I didn't get about, sexual violence of that magnitude. I mean,
the Home Minister and the Prime Minister condemned it.
I give full marks to Home Minister. Minister was very restrained. He gave a very good overview. He dubbed it as Sharmnak. But what I'm saying is, as a citizen, I'm looking at solution. I cannot, see that over 100 days have passed in Manipur. Things are not, still they're not in control. There has to be accountability. And for that, the Chief Minister had to go. And, 356 had to be imposed. It's not being done.
No, but the Home Minister answered that question, saying Article 356 Supershana is typically imposed when the state government is not listening to the government of the day. And if they've changed the DGP, they've appointed a new central advisor, he felt therefore... I'm just quoting what the Home Minister said. He felt therefore there was no reason for 356 to be imposed. Let Supriya Srinath come in.
Can I please come in?
Yes, Supriya.
So you are telling me that Article 356 of the Constitution should be disbanded, it should be deserted. There is a reason why Article 356 of the Constitution prescribes President's rule. Please understand one thing. You may think he is conforming to your norms, but the people of that state have lost faith in Biren Singh. Your own MLA is saying there is state-sponsored violence. One of your own MLAs is bed-bound because he's paralyzed because of the violence. Look at what the governor of the state has said. Look at what the Supreme Court is saying. There is Assam Rifle which reports to the Home Minister and Manipur Police that reports to the Chief Minister. They are at war with each other. Rahul, are you even hearing yourself when you say one Manipur or they have condemned? And I will say one thing because of being the lone woman on this panel. When I saw that video, I felt ashamed to go before any man. And I will tell you why. Those two women were not just paraded naked and raped thereafter, and not just because one of them was Kargil Braveheart's wife, but because of the way they were paraded naked. There was an entire battalion of, if I may call them vultures, who were touching their private parts, who were filming, and this government chose to sat on sensitive intelligence information for 78 days. That's the first time the Prime Minister spoke
GVL Narasimha Rao, Supriya's counter that you can't call Manipur one Manipur or one incident. What has happened is shameful, and that the government hasn't taken action in firing the Chief Minister on whose watch this happened. GVL Narasimha Rao.
No. Yeah, Rahul, I think the politics that Congress party is now playing out is very evident. 356 is imposed when you cannot really implement your own orders to bring situation under control. When officers have been...
but both Rashid Kidwai and Rahul Srivastava want to cite instances when that's not true. Just pause that for a second. Okay, let GVL complete. Okay, everybody can't speak together. 20 seconds for GVL to make his argument. Both Rahul Srivastava and Rashid itching to come in. So go for it. 20 seconds, GVL.
Yeah, the situation spiraled out of control after a court judgment. This was not a decision made by the Birendra Singh government. And he is not responsible for it. Certainly he cooperated and he's been trying his best with the support of the central government to bring it under control. What about Rajasthan? Is Congress, is Srinath not ashamed about what is happening to women in Rajasthan?
No.
Number of rapes that happen in Rajasthan. Is she not ashamed?
Okay, you asked for 20 seconds. Rashid Kidwai wants to come in on why he thinks your 356 analogy is wrong. Rashid Kidwai.
There are several instances where the Congress governments in Punjab and in Assam and several other places in Mizoram were removed because there was the Congress governments there and the Congress was at the center. It was sacked because the situation was getting out of control there. It's as simple as that.
Rahul, the Constitution of India is explicit, and I know my Constitution. It is said that Article 356 or a precedent comes in when the situation has arisen when the government of the state cannot be carried out in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. It does not say that the state is not complying. One.
Yes, it's a breakdown.
Second, it's a breakdown issue. Second, very importantly, see what has happened is that this debate was about Manipur. Manipur is not Rajasthan, Rahul. 6,500 FIRs
no,
are
it was
not
about Manipur.
Who told you it's about Manipur? The number. Then Rahul, eventually at the end of the day,
who told you this was about Manipur?
The issue is that did we come out of the debate? You know, people, Narasimha said something very interesting, that it's a frustrated party. There is nothing in the Constitution that frustrated parties and leaders can't ask questions in Parliament. And they can't participate in debates.
Harsh Madhusudan Gupta, the argument that can be made is because no action has been taken against the Chief Minister on who watched the violence happen, therefore there is no sense of contrition, there is no sense that there is some remorse that something has gone wrong. Harsh, if Biren Singh stays, you know, you can't say that you've taken action because the man on whose watch this happened still sits in his position. Harsh. Harsh can't hear me for the moment. Let me put that same question to GVL Narasimha Rao. That till the time Biren Singh is constant.
Can I please come
Harsh
in?
can hear us. Harsh, go on, respond to what I'm saying. Biren Singh still continues as Chief Minister. Therefore, there isn't a sense amongst the people of the country that action has been taken against the man who's watched this violence happen. Harsh.
First of all, the discussion in the Parliament was in response to a no-confidence motion. So the Prime Minister will not just speak about one state, but about his entire government and the opposition. Secondly, is this the opposition's case that if there is sexual violence in West Bengal, should Article 356 be applied there? Because then we would be said that there is a dictatorial center and the Supreme Court would be gone to, the basic structure of the Constitution would be invoked, rightly or wrongly. But because here it suits the narrative, suddenly 356 is welcome. I'm very confused whether they want a strong center or they don't want a strong center. Any violence that has happened is absolutely shameful, but the Prime Minister of the day has to respond to the entirety of the issues when there is a no confidence motion. It was not explicitly a discussion on Manipur. For that, the Home Minister had specifically addressed all the relevant details.
Okay, let Supriya Srinath respond to that charge, that if because of the poll violence and all the law and order problems in West Bengal or against the crimes in Rajasthan, 356 was imposed, then you'll cry blue murder. Supriya Srinath.
I will answer that question as directly as I can. And listen to the numbers I'm quoting. 160 people dead, 60,000 displaced, 5,000 houses burnt down, 6,500 pending FIRs, 5,000 arms, which includes light machine guns and AK-47s, looted from 35 police stations, including 6 lakh bullets. Who will those bullets be fired against? Against our soldiers in the army, against Assam Rifles, against Manipur police, against unarmed civilians. Do we understand the extent of what is happening in Manipur? Is something similar happening in any other state of India, including the ones ruled by the BJP? Forget about Rajasthan, forget about Chhattisgarh, forget about Bihar, Bengal, including your own states. Is any other state in the throes of violence?
Let GVL Narasimha Rao respond. Given the number of arms that have been looted, given the fact that there is now a buffer zone between the Cookies and the Maitis, because you can't go from one place to another, because two armed forces of the state and the central government seem to be at odds at each other, you therefore cannot compare what's happening in Manipur with the situation in Rajasthan. There is no equivalence. GVL Narasimha Rao, respond to that.
No, but as regards attacks on women, violence against women, rape of women, I think such very dastardly acts, they are happening in equal or even perhaps in greater measure in Rajasthan. But as far as the overall law and order situation is concerned, certainly the situation in Manipur cannot be compared with other states. But what is the solution? you see, whether a central government, how does it control? A home ministry has to control, no, after when you impose 356. But the state government has to implement it through the same machinery in the state, or send somebody from outside army, and the state government is fully cooperating. This is a situation unlike the 1966 situation that the Honorable Prime Minister referred to in his speech. What would Congress party have to say? You sent Air Force and you actually invaded Manipur, Mizoram. You actually bombed civilians in Mizoram. And the Congress party Congress party and Indira Gandhi have blood on their hands.
Let Supriya respond to the manner in which crises of this nature were dealt with in the past, including bombing by the Air Force the people of Mizoram that happened on your party's watch. Supriya.
Before I answer that question, I have a simple fact to state here. The Bharatiya Janata Party and the NDA have 2 MPs from Manipur. They had the maximum amount of time to speak in this no confidence motion, but they did not give a chance to either of the 2 MPs. You know why? Because they would have laid threadbare their absolute failing to control law and order, and which is why their own MPs weren't given a chance to speak. What do you have to say to your own MLA who says this is state-sponsored violence? What do you say to that MLA who's actually been paralyzed because of how violence hit him?
You want to respond to the question that I asked as well?
Answering your question directly. I'm answering your question directly. I'm answering. I never run away, so don't intervene. I'm answering your question directly. Manipur has been burning for the last 3 months. Your solution and your excuse is because something happened in the past. When we were in power, because after the Assam Accord, after the Mizoram Accord, after the Punjab Accord, we dismissed our own governments. So peace was ensured in that area. What have you done? You have been brazen, ran away from Parliament, and are indulging in all kinds of whatabouts.
Okay, Rahul Srivastava, why did the 2 Manipur MPs not speak?
See, basically there are 2 MPs are from the different sides.
Okay, 10 seconds, Supriya. 10 seconds, Supriya.
The reality today, Rahul, is that underlining reality is Manipur has been on fire, on boil for the last 3 months. Things have spread to Mizoram. Your state of Haryana is out of control. Arunachal Pradesh, your own MP is saying the Chinese have made incursions. Nagaland, nobody knows what accord have you signed on shared sovereignty. That's the reality.
Okay, Rahul, why didn't the Manipur MP speak?
But
see, the technical reason which has been given is that one is from the Baithi and one from the Kuki community.
Both could have spoken.
And they would have been at war with each other, and that would have heightened the passions in Manipur, and that's perhaps can be given as a sign of wisdom. See, the problem is, Rahul, if a Kuki makes a speech and if a Maithi makes a speech, they may try to address their own constituencies. So instead of putting a balm or a band-aid over the issue, the situation may get aggravated. And I don't think anybody in Parliament really wanted it. I think, Rahul, what we are missing the point.
To NDA.
The missing point we are missing is, this is Parliament is all about accountability, not just legislation.
Where was the Prime Minister?
The basic issue happened that the opposition had a huge opportunity to fix a template for accountability, but barring 3 to 4 speakers, they didn't create that unified, cohesive template for the government to answer.
Do you want to respond to that,
Rahul, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
And the government eventually, if you see the Prime Minister's speech, was less on Manipur, but again more against the India coalition, which moved the resolution.
Many of the opposition MPs simply didn't come well prepared. I mean, a few spoke well, but many of them were quite underwhelming in their delivery, their facts and their substance, Supriya.
This wasn't a college debate where people were being judged for delivery and content. This
was
a
parliamentary debate
where the government of the day had to be exposed and held accountable. Let me please finish. Had to be held accountable. And India, the entire country today has realized that the Prime Minister, when he spoke for 2 hours, 14 minutes, laughed, jested, joked, did all he could, kept criticizing Rahul Gandhi, spoke about the videos, spoke about the tweets that we put out, but spoke on Manipur for 2 minutes. That's the accountability that we set in Parliament and the country witnessed. That's the accountability which is important. I also want to point out one very important thing here, because we are talking about debates. Rahul Gandhi yesterday spoke for 15 minutes 42 seconds. 15 minutes 42 seconds he spoke on Manipur, for which The camera was fixed on the speaker for 11 minutes 8 seconds. 71% of the speech was almost like hearing the radio because Sansad TV chose not to show Rahul Gandhi.
Okay, let GVL respond to that charge. GVL, in the manner in which the technical director in the production control room of Sansad TV was switching between the cameras, when the opposition is speaking, when Rahul Gandhi is delivering a punchline, we are seeing Om Birla ji. When the ministers are delivering the punchline, you see the ministers and you see the claps. That doesn't seem fair. GVL Narasimha Rao.
Rahul, I think this is stooping low. I think this is stooping too low when they have no substance. I think they want to really make that kind of wayward criticism. It is most. I heard his speech. So if it wasn't made, most of the time it was on Rahul Gandhi. I heard most part of his speech live in Parliament. In Parliament building. No, I was not in the house.
There, I'm giving
but
you
it
data.
was mostly on TV. I saw only Rahul Gandhi. And now, and the seriousness of the entire Congress party and Rahul Gandhi can be understood from his mannerisms. The manner in which he was throwing flying kisses. I think showed that the Congress party was not in the right frame of mind. They wanted to use it only for politics.
Okay.
After saying something very, very serious, Rahul was seen to be indulging in
Harsh Madhusudan, did BJP ministers come across better prepared in this debate? You know, I want to tell our viewers that the government has divided the ministers into a few cohorts with the likes of JP Nadda, Nitin Gadkari, Rajnath Singh, Amit Shah leading each of the cohorts. They've been doing midnight rehearsals, going up to 11:30, 12 every night, talking to these ministers, giving them talking points. Did that level of preparation, Harsh, come through in the debate? Did the ministers and the BJP MPs seem better prepared than the opposition MPs?
I think there was a qualitative difference, which you could see was a difference of diligence. Even in terms of hearing, not just in terms of delivering. Today, Rahul Gandhi came, I think, 45 minutes after the Prime Minister started. So at one level, we are talking about why did the Prime Minister not say X as I want him to say? Why did he not say Y as I want him to say? But then you come an hour late almost. And then you also then get up and leave the Parliament. So do you want to hear what the Prime Minister is saying or do you not want to hear what the Prime Minister is saying?
Argument to make.
I think Nirmala Sitharaman's speech was very well prepared.
No,
and I think
one second. I want to get in.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
Manipur. Categorically answered all the questions on Manipur. So unless they want the Prime Minister to simply repeat those same bullet points, I am not able to process this argument that he spoke only for 2 or 3 minutes. He spoke in a prime ministerial manner that the people of India are with Manipur.
Rashid Kidwai, what was with Rahul Gandhi coming and going? He comes in late after the Prime Minister starts speaking, at least 30 minutes after the PM had started speaking. Midway they do a walkout. Was that walkout warranted? And if he's there, then why isn't he there for the full speech? Why is it that he's so whimsical about whether he'll be there during the speech or not?
Right, Rahul. Ideally, he should have been there throughout that period, and particularly when Prime Minister was speaking. But at the same time, the same yardsticks apply to the Prime Minister. When the no confidence motion was introduced by Gaurav Gogoi, the Prime Minister was not there. So me and Rahul Srivastava, we have covered a lot of sessions in Parliament. I don't remember a precedence when the no trust motion was moved and the Prime Minister question was not there.
Okay,
So
GVL, do you want to respond to that? That the Prime Minister was there during Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary's speech, at least for a part of it, but not there when Gaurav Gogoi started speaking, not there when Rahul Gandhi was speaking. Shouldn't he have been there for longer, listening to what the others had to say, like the Home Minister was?
I think the Prime Minister said one very important point. Leading the Congress party in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. And there is an official leader, there is an unofficial
That's
leader.
a very good
Whose
point.
question is that?
No, one second. First, let GVL.
Okay,
if everybody speaks at the same time, then I'm going to be, and the camera can't stick to me, right? I can't do an Om Birla. So allow me to moderate. Let GVL respond to the question about the Prime Minister not being there when Gaurav Gogoi was speaking or Rahul Gandhi was speaking. Respond, GVL.
No, the convention in Parliament, I think if somebody doesn't know parliamentary conventions, they might make such comments. But people who understand conventions, generally it is when the LOP, when the leader of the opposition speaks, the Prime Minister usually is present in the House. Rest of the time, obviously, when he is to respond, he has to prepare himself, listen to many of these speeches. He was there when Adhir Ranjan spoke because he's the, whether he is a figurehead or a nominal opposition leader, I don't know. But he is the
but that's
LOP
a very
of the
important point. Supriya Shrinay, the Congress must explain, if Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary is still the leader of the opposition, leader of the party in the Lok Sabha, why wasn't he allowed to speak? The BJP gave him time to speak from their quota of time.
So Rahul, Kanwal, Amit Shah and Narendra Modi are not going to decide who the speakers of the Congress party will be, with all due respect to all three of you. I think it will be decided by us. That's point number one. Point number two, you know, the double speak is astounding. You use the word whimsical for Rahul Gandhi. The Prime Minister has made the first appearance while the Parliament is in session. The first appearance during this Parliament monsoon session in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha for the first time today. He chose not to come even in the last 3 days when the no confidence motion was moved against his government to hold him accountable for Manipur. He chose not to speak on Manipur for 78 days, and you choose to call Rahul Gandhi whimsical. That's high standards of double speak, if I may say so. I want to just say two things. We want to see what the Prime Minister is capable of. A Prime Minister drunk on power is capable of negating a Supreme Court order that says that the Chief Election Commissioner or the Election Commissioners should be appointed by a panel of Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice of India. He negates it by moving a bill.
Let me spend a moment on that with Rahul Srivastava. What's the thinking in the government? Why have they brought this bill which will change how election commissioners and chief election commissioners are appointed?
Rahul, the court order said that there should be a mechanism of a panel to appoint the EC and CEC till there is a law created by the Parliament in accordance to the Constitution, Article 324. And that's what the government is doing. It is creating. So it was not that the court has said that this is the new framework and you can't do anything else. Court said, because till now it was an official order through which the ECs were appointed.
No, but it's a skewed panel. If you got one minister, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition.
The Supreme Court mandated it. The point is, court said there is no fixed parliamentary law and legislation for the appointment of the ECs.
No, but it's also about propriety. GVL Narasimha Rao, just before elections, not that this particular election commissioner changes before the 2024 election. That change only happens with Rajiv Kumar in 2025 February. So Rajiv Kumar is the 25th election commissioner appointed on the 15th of May 2022. He stays till 2025 February, so he will run the 2024 elections. But just in a matter of propriety, it doesn't seem appropriate. Why change what the Supreme Court has come up with?
Can I just speak on that very quickly?
No, it's too rich for the Congress party. It's too rich for them to make such comments. I think you know how election commissioners were appointed during the Congress regime. I think it's too rich for them. I think they will if they don't want to hear how they have really twisted this.
No, that's not the point. That again is what about three. No, there's no equivalence here. Hush, Madhusudan Gupta. It's about propriety. Sir, it's about propriety. You ask 90% of the people who are watching.
Since the BJP is so sure-footed of its victory, it should be seen. Elections are something which is very sacred.
Let Hush speak. 90% of the viewers who are watching, including those who might support and vote for the BJP, would rather that there be a panel which is fair, which isn't skewed towards the government, than have one which is skewed towards the government, which picks your election commissioners.
100% of the people will want fair panel. The question is what constitutes a fair panel. For 75 years, a certain way the election commissioners were appointed. For the Supreme Court to suddenly come out of the blue and say this is how it will be done henceforth, that is actually an infringement of propriety. There's a division of powers. The judiciary, the legislative, the executive are all co-equal branches of government. The judiciary does not lord over the other two branches of government. So let us go back to first principles. And just because the Supreme Court has said something, now in procedural propriety, the government has responded by saying, okay, we will draft this. But for the Supreme Court to have done this in the first place is to basically impugn the integrity of this particular government and say, so far all elections are fair. Right now, despite more EVMs, these elections are not going to be fair. I think that was
that's not what the Supreme Court is saying. Sorry, the Supreme Court is saying that there must be a person who's not from the government or the opposition who's sitting on that panel.
Why now? Why now? Why not earlier? That's the question. I understand what you're saying.
Well, that 75 years that my friend is referring to, the 75 years, it included appointment of TN session.
And
by Rajiv Gandhi government.
No, but Rashid, the point is that
we must also acknowledge.
Rashid,
we must acknowledge TN sessions.
Why was this kind of accountability or a transparent system not thought about 50 years ago? Why did see, this is what I say. In a democracy, you create bad practices, they become precedences.
But
Okay,
Rahul,
so
sir, just one submission. I'm just saying that why, when we have so
Can
much
I
faith
please
in
come in?
democracy, why should we create an element of doubt by bringing these kind of things?
Okay,
Why
let
is your
Supriya
thing-
Shrinate
why
come
does
in
not be transparency?
and make her
Can I
argument.
please
I'm also
come
running
in?
out of time, so we're now at the fag end of this debate. Supriya, go for it.
So for all the people who are questioning why now, why so, TN Session was not raided by India's enforcement agencies, even though some thought he was very harsh. But election commissioners in India who gave a negative ruling with the Prime Minister having crossed some boundaries with Model Code of Conduct were not just raided, their families were raided, their sons and daughters who are functionaries in the government were raided. And I'm talking about Ashok Lavasa, who mysteriously went to, I think he went to Exim Bank or some such posting while he was the election commissioner. That is why justice is to be seen and to be delivered. And there is a huge difference. The reality is that the Modi government arm twists in institutions. It arm twists something as simple as Sansad TV. And GVL Narasimha Rao, unlike you, I don't do whataboutery, I'm throwing facts at you. 15 minutes, 42 seconds he spoke, 11 minutes, 8 seconds of playback, I saw Om Birla on screen. Refute that argument and come prepared
I'm running out of time.
Refute
Final words,
if you have
Harsh
any data on
Madhusudan
you.
Gupta. How does this impact the battle for 2024?
Why?
Does it
Because
at
he's a
all?
BJP
Harsh.
supporter?
No, I think the Prime
Why should he
Minister has
speak last?
basically ignored the no confidence motion and said this is agenda for development. India will develop by 2047 and this period will be remembered for the next 1,000 years.
He's an arrogant
And I think
Prime Minister.
that is
He's
what
a
will be the
clueless
take.
Prime Minister who doesn't
Supriya,
know what's
please
happening
Okay,
in the
let him
country.
speak. Let Harsh
so
speak.
drunk on
Fade
power
it down.
and
Let
so
Harsh speak.
For the next 1,000 years, these next 25 years will be remembered. He confidently spoke of India becoming the third largest economy in the world very soon, and then becoming a developed nation by 2047. The reality is the opposition has no policy agenda, nothing that unifies them except Modi Hatao. And that is what came through in the speech.
The Prime Minister's speech came a day after Rahul Gandhi spoke in Parliament. PM Modi hit out at the Congress MP from taunting him on his Bharat Jodo Yatra to countering his Ravan jibe. The Prime Minister launched an unsparing attack on Rahul Gandhi.
रावण दो लोगों की सुनता था, मेघनाथ और कुंभकर्ण। वैसे ही नरेंद्र मोदी दो लोगों की सुनते हैं, अमित शाह और अडानी। भाई और बहनों, लंका को हनुमान ने नहीं जलाया था, लंका को रावण के अहंकार ने जलाया था।
प्लीज माननीय सदस्य, आप संयमित बोले। आप ये सदन है, आप तरीके से बोलिए माननीय
राम
सदस्य।
ने रावण को नहीं मारा था, रावण के अहंकार ने रावण को मारा था।
लंका हनुमान ने नहीं जलाई, उनके घमंड ने जलाई। और ये बिल्कुल सच है। आप देखिए, जनता जनार्दन भी भगवान राम के रूप की है। जनता जनार्दन भी भगवान राम के रूप की है और इसलिए 400 से 40 हो गए।
Okay, tomorrow we hope to have the results of the political stock exchange where we'll ask voters across the country who they thought won the debate in Parliament. Our pollsters are working round the clock to get the poll together to process the results, and I hope to have those out for you 8 p.m. tomorrow. So goodbye, good night, and I'll see you again.